great and I think my starting also sort of resonates with where she ended by quoting Archimedes as well as Mahatma Gandhi, be the change you want to see the world. And the new world, we need to reskill ourselves, rebalance our lives, and reboot our careers and the way we are our entire systems. So that's where all these emerging technologies now that are speeding up, acting in conjunction with each other. So they are leading to a new world of automation and convenience, right? So I believe that all of us we should definitely, I think, follow whatever I said. And I always believe that one thing which I always advise people to do is I'm an avid reader. I write almost 100,000 books. If you come to my house, you find at least one room full of books, all sorts of books. So I'm an avid reader. But then once I started writing, well, I wrote a book called Successful Organizations in Action. I wanted to write a good book. That's when I learned maximum. So from then onwards, I realized that when you write books, when you write something, when you write articles, white papers, you learn, you research much more. And then you also want to present a good thing in front of your readers, so you learn much more. So it's very important that you always try to write something. When you solve problems, you learn more, not just read the lessons. So that is one lesson which I wanted to start with. And then I also want to say, if you want to really master something, you should actually go in front and start giving sessions and interacting with students who are very, very passionate about learning something new, because they will pose a lot of new problems when you try to search for answers for them. You learn more. So that's another lesson which I learned, that I past 3 years I would have participated in more than 50 training sessions. Of course, I would always like to incorporate videos, demonstrations, and so on, question answer sessions, etc., into my training sessions. But since the time given today is extremely short, and further it has been cut by the 10 minutes, I may not be able to incorporate all those various elements in the presentation. I just try to give some idea, because all of you have taken your valuable time in working day to understand a little bit about this new technology, emerging technology, and what is happening. And to caution, in the beginning, I feel that as Madam was telling that don't take technology everything. The world is not everything about technology, but it combines a number of other software elements as well. So don't just not the blockchain. A lot of hype around all the technology, blockchain, AML, etc. Don't get carried away, but you have to use them for whatever they are worth to solve the problems that we are facing. And the more you think, these are very complicated. Unfortunately, some of them, the paradigms are very complicated. The more you think, the more you get confused. Just take it as it is and try to understand what all they can be applied for, and start trying to use them and looking for things wherever you can apply this. And blockchain is only one element of digital transformation. There are so many other elements, all the emerging technologies today, AI analytics, IoT, blockchain, 3D, AR, VR, all of them can be combined together in any digital transformation exercise. And if you know full stack, these are all technologies most of our programs in India know. And if you understand what is distributed ledger, blockchain is a cakewalk, right? I can see a lot of full stack programmers now writing books also on blockchain, especially how to develop blockchain application solutions. So it's a teamwork. It's only 25% technology. It's an inter-enterprise activity. You have to interact with so many people, and it involves business sense, business plans, and you have to make economic sense of what investments were made. And not only that, you have to also convince so many people who are across various organizations, everybody having their own interests to protect. And most of the time, these people could be your competitors in the business. So the sort of communication, collaboration, cooperation you have to do with the different players in your ecosystem is among us. So that is where you feel technology is only a small part. It's already been tracked well. There's so many platforms have come, and they're continuously evolving also. So technology is not the issue here. The issue is of working together with people and then implementing this and overcoming a lot of resistance to change that we have because of people not understanding what this technology is about, what it can be doing, and understanding different things about it. And it is important to go to roots and understand basics. If you understand the basics strongly, which I'll try to explain in this presentation, you'll be able to then very well apply blockchain very, wherever it is applicable. It's not applicable everywhere. Wherever you're able to also identify where it could be applicable. Then you should get used to this new paradigm of basic distributed later. And you always look to study practical implementations, try to learn use cases, examples, metaphorical approaches. I have tried to cover this in the book blockchain. For non-IT professionals, a lot of examples and metaphors. Try to look for them, then you'll be able to understand it better. It's a simple, it's as simple way. If you understand RFID in IoT, it has got certain properties. Then it has got applications in hundreds of fields. If you get into any provider offering RFID solutions, you can find the only technology is very simple. You need something, and then you take out the data in that, and then you can modify the data which is related to that, or you can analyze the data and then use it for different solutions across various domains. So same thing with blockchain as well. So, and another problem is blockchain is people don't understand it much. So when 3 years back when I got into blockchain in a big way, and my wife was cautioned by all her friends and everybody saying that Seamus is getting into something which is is going to become a fugitive. It's not legal, and because everybody thought blockchain Bitcoin. Even last week also my boss tried to discourage me saying that though he loves blockchain, he himself some scientist from IISc or somewhere that blockchain is what I want to go before you can see blockchain applications everywhere. So a lot of times you hear and you're always on the Microsoft wherever you speak, people say, show me where it's working. Because in India we don't have much of those cases. Everybody says, show me where it is working, then only I will believe. And we don't have much in India, of course abroad and across multinational companies, and so many consortiums are there which are implemented. But you look at for India, of course, all the leading companies like Tech Mahindra, Persistent Systems, Wipro, they have implemented CCS. They have implemented fantastic solutions globally across the world. But in India, the applications are few and far between. That is a problem we have for all people in blockchain in India. So then we will try to see why blockchain is required and what, where, when, etc. But we will not be able to talk much about how because it's a vast subject. And we'll try to inspire people about the potential of blockchain, and we'll focus more on enterprise applications because in India we don't encourage cryptocurrency, etc. And we can answer the questions at the end of the presentation. And I have taken material in this presentation from from the white papers, etc. And also my own experience of implementing solutions in a number of use cases. So in blockchain enterprise blockchain started majorly in 2015 when platforms like Ethereum, private Ethereum, Forum, then Articoda over a period of time, and then Hyperledger, etc. come into being. Now there are plenty of enterprise application development platforms, and depending on the requirement, people can choose the type of platform depending on the use case and functional area, domain, etc. And there's and the ecosystem is growing fast, but it is in a state of flux. So people are still confused where all it is applicable, how it can be implemented. That there is a problem of availability of talent, etc. It is only expected in the next 5 years. It will reach some sort of maturity, and then we will see that wherever applicable, we will also see their use cases happen. Right? So a lot of myths have been busted when you talk about. There are a lot of myths which are actually impeding the focus of blockchain understanding in the professionals today. The problem is everybody thinks the blockchain is the same as Bitcoin. Bitcoin is only one application of blockchain, but it's a living example that blockchain can do. Right? Bitcoin has been in operation for more than 12 years, and it's going strength to strength as of today. Also, but it has not been broken. The technology has been proven thanks to Bitcoin. Though many other applications have come up. The blockchain can prevent corruption and crime. A lot of people think blockchain as they try to peddle blockchain as something, but they eliminate corruption. You and I talk about it. The point is blockchain minimizes this corruption and crime by putting a lens on whatever activities are happening, and it also ensures that discoverability. Suppose if any problem happening anywhere, if you are implemented blockchain, transactions are coordinated blockchain, you can zero in on that point very fast, and that is where you can discover who has done it, what has happened, etc. And when you are able to measure anything or monitor anything, the people who tend to commit such crimes, they will be in check and they will not do so. Actually, so that is how it minimizes the incidence of these crimes and corruption. It is like putting a CCTV camera underneath that. People know that there is a CCTV camera. They won't do any crimes underneath because they know it will be recorded and they will be followed. So blockchain is very much similar to that. It cannot change the human behavior per se, but it can put a check on people's propensity and tendency to commit crimes. Blockchain is all about decentralization, which is not true. There are decentralized, completely decentralized blockchains like Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc. But most of the enterprises, as well as governments, they like some sort of centralization and control. So there will be some amount of decentralization in amount of competing departments or competing organizations. They will be holding the nodes, but it is not fully a decentralized system. It could be for decentralized, people can use it for decentralized processes. People think blockchain is anti-establishment because Bitcoin is basically peer-to-peer sort of a application. It will enable value transfer between peers without recourse for any regulatory authority. Unfortunately, everybody thinks that they have disregard for anything legal or government or central bank, etc. That's not true because most of the applications we talked about enterprise applications, they are all fully in compliance with KYC and AML norms. And then, so they are not anti-establishment. They are actually most of the times we have government nodes also having oversight, right, in most of the enterprise applications. So they are not anti-establishment, and we are also talking to government from NIC point of view for formulating the national policy, so that they will come out with clear rules and regulations for facilitating this entire ecosystem. Blockchain poses threat to privacy, confidentiality. Absolutely not true. Whenever people want to oppose blockchain system, they'll say whatever data you put in the public, everybody in the world will know about it. But this is biggest misnomer, and in fact, political parties also use wherever I have implemented blockchain solutions in my earlier companies. Because it is implemented by government, the opposition party went and create a big press conference and a lot of news and articles and even report that blockchain is exposing people's information and all private information put in public domain, etc. But even court also had examined everything and threw out that appeal, right? So even if the High Court has thrown out appeal, you can imagine that blockchain is proven to be safeguarding human privacy and confidentiality as well. So blockchain is also used for consumption. It's true only for Bitcoin and permissionless blockchains. In enterprise applications, you don't require where trusted people are known people are interacting. So that you don't require much more consumption at all, and speed also could be much higher. Blockchain is 100% technical, so not at all, as we discussed earlier. It is only 25% technical. It also abstracts a lot of complexities of technology into a single platform. Normally, traditional technologies, what they take to do blockchain, abstracts them and does it with 1/4 of the effort. But the problem comes here is that you need to interact with a lot of parties and convince them, and to implement this blockchain. So that's where the problem comes: communication, collaboration, cooperation, etc. Especially when parties are having conflicting interests with each other, and they could be potentially competitors. So in future, all operations in enterprise can be carried out. Platform is not true for traditional systems like ERP, etc. Wherein they're all intra-organization, they will continue to be performed on blockchain, wherever which are totally internal to organization and private. So only blockchain is more useful when multiple enterprises or competing enterprises or entities are working together. Blockchain results in 100% immutable data. It is not true. It is proven even in permissionless blockchain also, like Ethereum, which is supposed to be contain immutable data. Once there was a transaction that had to be removed, so they changed the data by eliminating one block, right? So even in enterprise applications, if all the parties work together, they can potentially actually in consonance with each other, they can alter the transaction. So it is possible, but it is very difficult. It is very difficult to the extent of almost possibility to change the data once it is important. Blockchain has low acceptance across countries and low enterprises. Everybody is following the blockchain system, both starting from Estonia now with Dubai and even US. Everywhere now in Singapore, most of the countries across the world, they have recognized the importance of blockchain. Blockchain is being leveraged extensively. And enterprises, there are more than 50 consortiums across the world. Some of them we highlighted in the presentation. And each consortium, in container, for example, container movement, IBM Maersk have created straight lines, which actually controls more than 60% of the world's container movement seas. Right? So it's finding rapid wherever people believe there is believe in this technology and paradigm, and they're able to use it, they're able to see the full fruit of in their investments, and it is growing. But wherever people are not able to understand it, still they are going to lag behind, and they're not able to adopt this new paradigm. They will vanish from the face of this business. So then you have distributed ledger and blockchain identical. It's not to examine what the difference between them. Blockchains can be made irrelevant by quantum computing enabled encryption. Blockchain could pose a severe problem for permission like blockchains, wherein there is no owner to defend. So Bitcoin, etc., Ethereum, especially Bitcoin, where it is very difficult to change their algorithms very fast in response for any attack. They could be posing a severe problem, but wherever the response could be faster in terms of upgrading to a quantum-proof system of encryption and decryption, etc., then things could be protected. So enterprise applications and government applications, you don't have much because government also can, or enterprises or administrators can also come back with a quantum-proof solutions against any quantum-related. Right? So the changing architecture of the firm, architectures are changing. It started initially industrial age. Companies, there are physical. Slowly, we have extended enterprises. Then we have networks and platforms. We have the emergence of Amazon, etc. They're all platforms, Uber, and so many organizations which are even software applications and letting so many people users and vendors are interact and conduct business. But then over a period of time, now we are finding that the new paradigm of going to a totally different levels of economies of scale, wherein now enterprises and ecosystems are combining together for a new level of economies of scale. So far, that paradigm was difficult because such sort of platforms were very difficult to conceptualize, implement, etc. But blockchain is now providing for that. So that is where you are leading to. There's a growing trend that is leading to a new paradigm in the economic scale process thanks to applications of blockchain, which we will see later how it is. So we are always traditionally being used to these centralized applications. You open your mobile, you'll find all the centralized applications. All of them, they know everything about you. You know nothing much about them except whatever information you have. Anything they want, they can even manipulate you by mining the information, whatever they have, and also they can, a lot of times you end up when you go to a shopping mall or even online shopping mall, you will end up buying a lot of things which you never thought you will, because you have been prompted that potentially you could like this and like that, and you may buy impetuously by buying. Right? So that sort of thing. So your behavior also is manipulated thanks to. But all these people who are carrying so much of information about you are not totally safe. You are seeing so many data breaches. Data breaches is considered in the top 5 of the threats that human beings face today by WF. And then you have most of these, even most organizations have been attacked by cyber criminals. Once what you thought could never be attacked, they have been attacked and data has been taken out or corrupted and they have been to ransom. So this is, and we also have this problem. We have ministers, Indian cabinet ministers talking about recognizing this problem that we are facing frauds and across all aspects of our life. Generally, if you open up any newspaper every day, one day, from 6 in one paper, all of them are talking about some type of fraud. Whether it is a Punjab National Bank fraud, or whether it is a fraud, or it is APFO fraud, or university certificate fraud, or driving license fraud, or adulteration fraud. We are faced with all these things. So we require so many problems we are faced with today. Yes, even today, after so much of evolution of technology, so we cannot solve this problem at the same level that was created. We have to rise about it to next level. So we require something totally different paradigm to help us go to the roots. Some technology or some platform that can go to the roots and help us in solving all this problem and prevent or minimize the incidents. So that's where what if you can see all places. For example, you are having food, like you are having adulterated food. But if you are able to see why I traveled and where it started and how it ended, or any whether it is any item you eat or whether it is vegetarian, non-vegetarian item, if you're able to see, is it possible? I mean, so that is, if it is possible, then you can find out if there is any adulteration that is taking place. You most probably will be able to pinpoint where it has happened and go there and find out people involved in that. And if repeatedly something happens from the same location, then you can find out people were involved. So similarly, if you have an auto dealer, before you left the auto dealer, you can write in registration, text your phone, you know complete information about your the car, as well as also spare parts that are used in that, or instant the registration. So these are the number of benefits which you only dream of. Suppose if you are 100% sure there are no fake votes and your vote will be your vote and nobody else casts on your behalf. And your digital identity is no longer represented by user ID and password, but you can identify yourself and only disclose selectively the data that needs to be disclosed at any point. For example, if you want to purchase liquor, if you're able to prove without telling you showing the bank card or data birth, if you're able to prove that you are above 21 years. Okay, so that sort of things would definitely make our life much better and happier in the future. So all these things currently are not that much available, but they're a platform that so there's a need for such a platform which minimizes these problems and also improves our quality of life. So that's where if you want something in your life you never had, you'll have to do something which you have never done. That's where blockchain ecosystem is going to facilitate. Right? So that is how it does it and where all it is happening that we will see in the future. So traditionally we are used to dealing with centralized applications like Amazon, which facilitates interactions between different peers and different customers and different vendors. To do it on Amazon. You go and buy on Amazon because you trust Amazon. So Amazon is acting like a trusted third party. So most of our interactions, you always end up dealing with banks or any social media sites. You don't go and put your data or conduct transactions or any site in which you don't trust the platform owner, right? So that is the way we are used to it. So these are called trusted third parties, and these are all acting in a centralized manner. But these centralized people, organizations can view data, modify data, mine data, monetize data, and then they can also lose data to malicious attacks and databases. So this is what we already seen happening. Every day you find either your email list is lost or some payment details are out, and in China, 35 crore people's information is available in public, right? Complete information about them, about their identities, etc. So then China, everybody knows it. Cyber security wise, controls wise, is one of the best. But unfortunately, even in China, 35 crore people information is out of the public. So that sort of threats we are facing. So all our data is lost, and the current technologies are not able to solve this problem we are facing. We are ending up with more and more problem because COVID is leading to so much of digitization. Everything is now digital. So your entire data, your entire transaction, your entire life is now gone online. So imagine the sort of threat what we have from the cyber criminals. So risks are only increasing. Now, there's been a tendency towards in the world towards open source software. People want to use more and more open source that will enable in very, very quick development of solutions. And earlier, if you want to be an entrepreneur, then you need to invest a lot in IT systems, and then you need to take up storage space. Number of things you need to invest, whether it's software or hardware, etc. But now, thanks to cloud and software as a service, you are able to quickly launch applications very fast. So this all is leading to quick development of solutions across various emerging technologies and even the new technologies as well, and continuously even a lot of learning media, everything is also available. Even your YouTube is a university itself, right? So you can learn everything, do everything. If you just set your mind on it, you can quickly, with limited resources, get out something on the ground. That is where all these emerging technologies are gaining rapid traction. And then also move towards decentralization. So all these various centralized applications, they are compromising your privacy and data. So that is where people are looking for decentralized solutions. They don't want to depend on centralized solutions. So this is leading to a tendency towards people who want more and more power in their hands. They want to monetize their own stuff. So you have this centralized network instead of the centralized application acting as a third party. Suppose if you have a network of people or systems run by people, but in a programmatic manner, they are taking the decisions and providing the trust. Okay, how will it be? So that means Amazon is replaced by a network of nodes which are acting in consonance and providing you the surety and guarantee by acting like a trusted third party equivalent account. So that's when, if you have such a system in place, then you don't need to deal with Amazon. It can be any peer, anybody can deal with anybody in the world as long as the trust is actually provided by a system. The person is replaced by a system. So that is what blockchain is offering. So blockchain is offering a system that acts like a trusted third party. And it is done in a programmatic manner. The program is known to all the people in advance. You're dealing with the system, you know what program is running and whatever the program, nobody can change it. So that is where you get the guarantee that your details are always safe and secure, and and one person is not manipulating the information. So if these particular people who are maintaining these networks, they could be called, there are different types of platforms that are available. They could be called maintainers, validators, miners, operators, depending on type of platform which you are using. There are Hyperledger, R3 Coda, or Quorum, or you also have Ethereum, private Ethereum, or even Bitcoin, etc. So these people, different people are, the different networks have different terminologies, and all these peers actually they interact there, and then they communicate, and then share the messages, disseminate the information to number of protocols, those protocols or AMQP protocol, etc. But all the information is totally encrypted and then shared across the nodes. And then, so your decision is now taken by a group of nodes who are running a consensus algorithm. And that particular information, once any decision is taken, when you propose a transaction, you want to buy a shirt from a vendor, that information is now pushed into the network, and the network takes cognizance of it. And then a group of miners or validators validate this transaction is possible, and money transfer has taken place, and all the requisitions of this particular transaction are in place. So once they approve the transaction, that information about the transaction will then be spread to multiple people across the world. There are all different nodes, so in a distributed ledger. So when it is done disseminated across wider forum. So what happens is, suppose tomorrow if you want to change the transaction, you need to change the decision that is taken by these people, as well as the information which is already circulated and registered in so many other ledgers across the world. So this is impossible almost, because you don't not only have to change the transaction, but all these transactions in a blockchain, what happens is all the transactions are timestamped or linked to each transaction is linked to the previous transaction. So if you want to change the transaction of 100 transactions, but if you're running currently the 150th transaction, or since changing the 100 transaction will change all the transactions from 100 to 150th. So you have to change all the transactions from 100 to 150th from the decision maker side, as well as even the ledgers that are distributed, which is virtually impossible. That is what lends some sort of immutability to blockchain system. So the only way in which you can change the transactions, pass further transactions, annulling the earlier transactions, and then passing corrective entries. That is why blockchain is called tamper evident, or tamper resistant application, right? So that is how blockchain provides some sort of immutability to transactions, and then once that blockchain records the transaction, it cannot be changed. No individual can change, because it's totally system driven. So you tend to believe it 100%. The only thing you need to believe is the particular quorum of the central, these consensus providers or the set of validators. They should be very, very highly credible and trustworthy. So you should trust them. If they are trustworthy and they're all running this program together, then absolutely, you are safe, and you can this particular entire system can enable peers across the world to interact with each other, but by providing the transparency, immutability of transactions. Right? So in a blockchain, any transaction peers can push a transaction, then centrally you can see a circle. In that there is one a group of decision makers or consensus keepers or validators. They validate the transaction, then record it across, put it in blocks, and then record it across the entire blockchain ecosystem. And the information is shared as a need-to-know basis or as approved basis. So only the people who are approved to see the information or share the information or the right information, they will be seeing. But in permissionless blockchain like we have Bitcoin and Ethereum, then anybody can, all the people will get it symmetrical. But in permission blockchains, you have information is shared to protect the privacy and confidentiality of the transactions as well. So the blocks are linked to previous block. As you can see below how each block is linked to another block. So the complete details of this block are hashed, and then the next block starts with the previous hash. So all this, if you're changing one small transaction in one block, it will entail the it will result in change of all the information in all the blocks in the future, and the blockchain will go out of sync with the rest of all the ledgers. So that is where you cannot change the transactions when you record it in a blockchain. The blockchain contains searchable timestamp and verified transaction metadata. Using that, you can using the transaction ID, you can begin go ahead and find out the complete details. If you are allowed to find out if you are access permits, you can go ahead and find out that information and full details about every data. Only selected people also are able to push transactions to the network. So then you have a blockchain. You can see here how blockchains are related to traditional databases. Traditionally, we are used to databases, normal databases, front databases. So you can create, read, that, update, and delete. But in blockchains, you cannot delete because deletion involves a number of other things like consensus, etc. So when the data tends to large or distributed databases, but in the distributed databases, have data that is replicated under the same admin identically, so that it provides disaster recovery, etc. But in distributed ledgers, the people who are holding the ledgers are totally different. They're not under the same admin. They could carry the same identical data, but the owners are all different. So one person cannot go and change the information in another person's, right? So if one person changes the ledger himself, all other ledgers will go out of sync, and that person could be identified. Right? So that is the difference between distributed databases and distributed ledgers. So distributed ledger technology, which involves identification of the people who are involved through their private public keys, and they can conduct transactions with private keys. They all carry ledgers which are actually approved and authenticated with a set of rules and regulations and systems. And then that is recorded across. And in the blockchain is a subset of distributed ledger, special type of a distributed ledger technology, where the proof of the transactions is then put in blocks, and then the blocks are chained together, and then the chain of blocks, which is called a blockchain, is distributed to all the nodes who are participating. So blockchain actually is a special type of distributed ledger technology, which also encompasses this sort of smart contracts applications acting on the data, then changing the ownership, and the transactions are proof is taken and then put into blocks, and then chains are formed, right? And then there are two types of blockchains. One is permission blockchain and permissionless blockchain. Permissionless blockchain means anybody can become a part of the validating or consensus group, maintainer group, or anybody can read and write. But in permission blockchains, which are used for enterprise and government applications, there are a lot of restrictions imposed, wherein only selected people can participate in decision making and consensus nodes, as well as their people who can push transactions and read and write transactions, etc. So public blockchains have data that is visible, or private blockchains have data visible as per access controls. So that is the difference between blockchains, databases, and distributed ledgers. Blockchain databases are also blockchain can also be termed salt. They're also the data that is there in blockchain transactions. The blockchain transactions are considered sequential, agreed, ledger, tamper-resistant information that is stored in these blocks and then distributed across the various nodes that are participating. In the permissionless blockchains, we discussed which are another type of distributed ledgers. In that data to be it's symmetric. All the people will carry the same information. Peers can interact with each other, and there will be no requirement of admin. Bitcoin is a chained platform which entails exchange of billions, hundreds of billions of dollars of cryptocurrency, worth of cryptocurrency. But there is no admin or centralized regulatory authority at the all the peers transact with each other. There could be some middle people like exchanges, etc. All the data is ledgered. All the parties carry the ledgers which are either shared or distributed, and then there is a timestamp that is every transaction is timestamped generally. And in permissionless blockchain, there is always an agreement on how the blocks are created, what is the interval of blocks, time interval between the blocks, etc. So there are time consensus. So this actually describes the data transaction that are captured in the blockchain. And you have different types of blockchain as we discussed. The permissionless and public blockchain. Public blockchain means anybody can see the data, anybody can read and use the data, anybody can try to do transactions. But private means only selected people who are authorized, they can undertake the transactions and visualize the transactions. But another dimension is permissionless or permissionless means anybody can just download the application and be a part of the binding community or a consensus people community. But in permission applications, only selected people. For example, in government, they will allow only certain departments to participate in the approval of the transactions and record keeping, etc. So in enterprises as well, you use permission blockchain. So various combinations are possible, and they use appropriate type of platforms and consensus systems to go with them. So there are different permutations and combinations. We have seen who can participate, who can take part in decision making, who can receive the blocks, and who can involve it, and then how the data is updated onto your respective systems. And then all this, everything for every component of this leads to complexity. So, but if you understand only these three elements properly, you can decipher any type of blockchain and how they are created, how they are architected, etc. So blockchain actually traditionally we are used to our information system internet, wherein we exchange a lot of information in the same ways, participate in social media transactions, etc. But we don't conduct any transactions of value because we don't trust the internet. It could be you cannot send yourself one person another person directly. We don't send money through the internet. So for that we require either a bank or or a Google Pay or some trusted third party or Amazon to conduct these transactions. So that is because these people have invested heavily and then offering this as a trusted third party. So that's how traditional internet has resulted in such behemoths who are actually now acting as middlemen and providing the trust and taking a lot of value and also using the information what they have. But blockchain actually encompasses various technologies combined into one platform by leveraging simple technologies like encryption, permission access rights, smart contract applications of modeling of applications to like the business tools, and then you have privacy using zero knowledge tools, etc. These are all technologies which have been there for ages. So it combined all these things together and created a beautiful paradigm platform, and thus facilitated a system to act as a trusted third party. That will, and people, once you become a part of the system, they can fearlessly conduct transactions between themselves and exchange value itself. So that is how blockchain has been known as Internet of Value, instead of the Internet of Information we are always used to. It imposes new technologies like simple concepts like encryption and encoding, as well as hashing. Hashing is one of the beautiful hashing is beautifully leveraged in blockchain. Hashing involves taking any amount of data. It could be GBs, it could be MBs, it could be KBs, it could be any data could be taken, and hash is created, which is seen as a fingerprint of that. And once the fingerprint is created, and you can check the integrity of the data at any point of time later. So later on, if you modify the data and again you check the hash of that, it will vary from the hash that is already been recorded earlier. So hashing, which always results in unique output if the data is not changed. So it is leveraged beautifully. You hash the data and then put it on the blockchain. And later on, after 1 year, you want to check whether this data is same as that. Somebody is showing you a certificate whose hash was kept on a blockchain, and you hash the certificate today, whatever is provided, and then you check the hash that is put on the blockchain, because blockchain you cannot change whatever data you recorded. You dig it out from the blockchain, compare it to the hash that is recorded on the blockchain. If there is a difference, that means the data has changed or it has been manipulated. So it has been corrupted. So the hashing will enable you, hashing and immutability, these two components together when you combine the fantastic property of auditability, right? So that's how blockchain provides auditability, and that's why it's called blockchain. It's called also trust but verify. So you trust the data, but you are able to verify at any point of time whether the data has changed or not. So blockchain combines a number of these various parameters like governance. When you have this set of people who are acting as nodes, acting together in consonance, which they're providing governance, and then taking call on the systems or applications that are taking place and letting everybody know about it, and in a totally impartial manner. Then you have a number of participating nodes which are actually covering storing information, sharing information, messaging information, taking decisions, etc. Then you have network community level and persistent incentivization. People are taking implementing transactions and verifying transactions in public blockchains. You have an incentive mechanism because people are spending their computing power as well as electricity. But so they are incentivized for putting their and facilitating this maintenance of these particular blockchain systems. But in enterprise applications and government applications, the administrators or the people who are the founding community, they will be funding most of the expenses because they will be getting phenomenal benefit in terms of improvisation in their quality or drastic reduction in the cost and number of other users. And or number of facilities which they're able to provide the customer in the form of traceability and assurance of high quality and original product, etc. So there is another thing here. Blockchain is also having another differentiation with traditional databases is called smart system. You are able to manipulate the data that is there, whether it is assets owned by any individuals or represented in the blockchain, exchange of the assets and the value by triggering applications which are stored on the blockchain, which are approved by all the people in all the administrators in the system. So that is why a blockchain has got all the business tools that you see today, whether it is buying and selling. All these things can be modeled into applications and then uploaded onto blockchain, and then blockchain will act. When any application is triggered, it will implement those applications and it will undertake the exchange of the value as well as the digital version of the product, and then it will change the ownership of that, and then permanently record it. So this is another interesting difference with respect to normal databases. The blockchain has got a smart contract capability, and it is consensus progress of which in blockchain contains agreed data. Unlike normal databases where the data is commanded by one administrator or whoever is the owner of the database, here blockchain actually contains data which is agreed between a number of participants through a consensus process. And persistent immutable data store linked together by the programming. So all the data is chained together with the hashes, etc., so that it not be manipulated. Any tampering that is done become evident in the future. So blockchain is considered as a programming database and offers single source of truth, so eliminates single point of failure because the data is distributed between a number of parties. If one person loses the information because of attack or some other reason, or his node being corrupted, but the same data can be retrieved from all other nodes. That is how it eliminates single point of failure, and it becomes a big use plus against ransomware attacks, because ransomware attack involves capturing one system data and then telling him to pay a huge ransom so that you can release the data. But in a blockchain system, you cannot do that because the data can be retrieved from other nodes. It facilitates between competitors collaboration, communication, cooperation, coordination, and it helps in increasing the provenance, authenticity, and trust. You can say, in one way, it increases profit after tax as well of all the companies who are investing in the long run in a magical manner. So blockchain provides increased trust, transparency, security. The number of features provides real-time digital communication, decentralization without single point of failure. You find that when there are a number of people who are taking decisions, even if one node goes wrong, the other parties can together. There are tolerance limits. Blockchain can tolerate 33% of the decision making nodes. If they fail, also they can come to that decision on any data transaction. And chronological timestamp. All the data is generally timestamped. It's cryptographically secure. It is irreversible and auditable and tamper evident at any point of time later. You can check the integrity of the information, whether it's changed or not. It operates in a trustless mode. The trust is provided by the system. And then you have decentralization, peer-to-peer. People can conduct transactions. That is how it results in internet value, and it offers a distributed ledger. So these particular features have been encompassed in this particular initial application of blockchain for Bitcoin, which was launched in January 2009, in the form of a cryptocurrency. And the cryptocurrency, it is blockchain. It was considered as blockchain one, where only crypto assets were created and exchanged on the blockchain. But later on, you could model real life applications. A platform called Ethereum has come up, which showed how you can create an e-commerce website and or your social media site or any real life application can be modeled on the blockchain with a distributed ledger on the backend. And then today you are able to see a lot of applications of government, extensive applications for enterprises. This is called blockchain 3.0, wherein you don't require cash or cryptocurrency or tokens, etc. But you can conduct real life transactions to reflect our day-to-day interactions across government, G2C, G2B, B2B, etc. Right? And internet blockchain 4.0 is all about interconnectivity and interchange. And this is a recently survey that has happened in one of the PhD thesis of one of the leading blockchain experts in the world, who is linked to Melinda Gates Foundation. So they have conducted a research and they come out saying that most of the people across the world, they have understood the importance of blockchain. They feel blockchain is the way forward. Adoption is inevitable, right? But there are a lot of challenges because people have to know technology related issues. Standards are not there. The capacities have to be built up. So provided all these challenges are taken care, you can see faster adoption. So this is what is the finding of most of the and we have seen the recent, the last 1 month itself, from if you see April 27, we have seen an article how blockchain has been extensively used by countries in China, UK, USA to exchange information. Even blockchain has been used to facilitate 3D manufacturing of ventilators by crashing the cost, and helping the information flow, etc. Right. So the number of applications, and Amazon has patented a blockchain system on May 30th for supply chain tracking. And the US lawmakers are now exploring launching a blockchain-led cryptocurrency so that they can pumping huge money into the economy, which is affected by COVID, and then track it through the directly push into the hands of the citizens, and then track its use through the blockchain. So then China is also launching cryptocurrencies, and also they launched and the national blockchain platform. So we have seen BMW, Russian Trade Finance has done $100 billion in April on blockchain, their platform. And then Adani Ports are just on making to kind of TradeLens platform to leverage blockchain and be a part of the blockchain ecosystem. So there is an extensive use of implementation of blockchain across various domains across the world for both enterprises as well as governments. So this is something which we cannot ignore. We have to latch on to. Then we have in India national blockchain. We have been working. As I said, we are looking at facilitating. Government to accept the blockchain data and transactions as legal subject to certain conditions and to regulatory interactions and approvals. So then you get a huge fillip to that to the implementation of blockchain solutions in India. Like in insurance, for example, Insurance Regulatory Authority enables approves certain insurance, and after that insurance has taken off. So similarly, government also will lay down certain conditions and then will enable organizations to offer permission to blockchain solutions so that their data and transactions that are stored on them can be legally valid in the court of law as well. So we are waiting for that day when blockchain will take off, and then till the time you can still have regulated blockchains. Like what we have for income tax department as well as TRAI, wherein the regulators themselves are a part of the blockchain node and they have an oversight. So then in such a case, again, you have security, and then you have acceptability of the transactions. So as per IBM, blockchain is a peer-to-peer distributed ledger technology for a new generation of applications that establishes trust, accountability, transparency while streamlining the business process. We have seen all these various elements of this particular definition in the previous slides. Blockchain is nothing but network of business players, business group, and business. It is actually inter-enterprise phenomenon. So you require a business network to implement a blockchain. You have a lot of assets which are digitized, tokenized, and represented in digital form, and then you have a ledger which actually tracks the ownership and movement and all the transactions on that. So these are the various components of the enterprise blockchain: shared ledger, and then smart contracts which act upon various assets to change the ownership once conditions are met. And then you have consensus protocols, and you have privacy and security. We have seen because of encryption and coding. So smart contracts are nothing but applications which model real life transactions and place them on the blockchain, upload on the blockchain, so that the system then will be able to take decisions and then implement them. And once triggers, depending on the triggers, it will execute those applications automatically and without any personal or human intervention. So that's where we tend to believe systems and applications more. Then once that application is accepted by all the participants, you don't have to fear about any third party dominating change and use it to their advantage. So in blockchain is not useful for all use cases. It's only useful for 10 applications, 10% of the cases where transactions are undertaken between non-trusting parties. So here is a simple flowchart. You should just ask some questions, and you will find that people are not trusting with each other, and they require a persistent ledger. Then you don't want to rely on a real world third entity like Amazon or somebody, but you would like to have a trusted third party, which is by leveraging a system. That is when you can use blockchain. So you have to be very careful about where blockchain can be used and it is not used, because if you end up using blockchain in the wrong use case, you may be ending up spending a lot of money and later on using that to not getting the use. As per Gartner, there are 5 key elements of blockchain. There is one is the encryption, immutability, tokenization. Tokenization involves reflecting any real life asset in a digital form, in the form of number of units, which are fungible units sometimes, and which can also then be exchanged among people who are participating in the blockchain. So they are exchanged. They are the assets which are owned by the participants' identities in the blockchain, and depending on the applications that are triggered by external events, then they are exchanged between the participants. The ownership keeps changing, and the ledger keeps track of that. So you have decentralization as well as distribution. So you don't have to have all the elements in all the blockchain. If you have any three, more than 3 of these 5 elements in a blockchain application, you can consider it as a blockchain-inspired application. And most of the times, you end up in compromising 1 or 2 of these elements to certain extent, depending on the use case that you have. So you have blockchain normal technology, you have blockchain inspired technology, which is 3 or more. We have blockchain, all the 5 elements are used. It's called complete blockchain solution. Normally, this is what platforms like Bitcoin, Ethereum use. And you have enhanced blockchain wherein you leverage AIoT, 3D manufacturing, etc., along with blockchain applications, because blockchain can provide security through controlling access, authentication, authorization for IoT devices, as well as provide very, very high quality data from AI. So because high quality data enables the AI applications, AI ML applications to do productivity dramatically. Otherwise, if you analyze the garbage data, then you also end up spending a lot of time and money and coming out with wrong results. So then you have how blockchain starts. Initially, you have one organization centralized manner. It could initially start with by using Hyperledger Fabric, code, connecting some of the departments, and maybe 1 or 2 vendors and 1 or 2 customers creating a private blockchain where it is dominating. Then over a period of time, that is also Walmart has started Food Trust, and then it has added IBM and number of other players. It increased the quorum of the participants, and it created a new legal entity. And then it has then invited anybody in the food industry to come and become a part of the blockchain. Then it's called a consortium blockchain. If it becomes too big, then you have much quorum, larger quorum of people taking part in. It can be ultimately, that tends to infinity. When the participation tends to infinity, it can become like a public blockchain. It's very similar to the way organization starts, proprietary and partnership, and then public limited, and ultimately a public. So it's very, very similar way in which blockchain also progresses. So you have a number of applications: identity, asset provenance, payments, marketplace, tokenization. We'll see some of them how they are solving different problems. Blockchain can dramatically reduce fake products drugs, because it can put a lens. If any product that goes to the chain, if it found defective, you can immediately find out from where it has come, what is the entire journey to the manufacturer, and then you'll be able to find out where the problems are happening. If this problem keeps on happening again and again from the same place, then you can identify if something is wrong is happening in that particular place. So that is how it helps in discovering people who have created the problems. It has enabled the tracing of the source, reduce the time taken to tracing of the source from weeks to a few seconds. That is what IBM Food Trust has published results. We can help it because people have their own unique IDs and private keys. They digitally sign their transactions, can help fake codes, fake certificates, fake asset ownership, fake benefit. All these things have been implemented in some country or the other, and some application. That is through collaboration.
Sir, sorry for the intrusion. We are running a bit tad late on the time.
I'll just take 5 minutes. I think.
Okay, sure, sir. We are sorry. Thank you. Thank
So,
you.
yeah. So since we wanted to talk about some of the use cases, Indian government, Vidya, we're experimenting academic certificates for verification. We are trying to implement blockchain-based certificates for universities. Then benefit distribution, some of the states, I think even Rajasthan, Madam was there last year. I think 3 years back they implemented a parent benefit transfer of student laptops using the blockchain. And then we have clearing and settlement by NPCI is experimenting with clearing between the banks. And your distributed and container supply chain, Adani portion has just now become a part of trends. The electronic procurement management to minimize middlemen. We are talking with DRDO and a lot of other defense organizations to implement blockchain in procurement. Then farm supply chain transparency, efficiency, and implementation. Then GI tax for authentic or organic and premium product manufacturers. The income tax department has worked with Infosys to create a platform wherein all the banks can verify the accounts of the people who are applying for loan, whether their income is correct or not. They declare cross-verifying with their income tax returns. So because that the more the income, the more is eligible. So a lot of people can watch the information. Income tax department is now connected a few banks. Later on, it will expand to all the banks and financial institutions. This is successful. People already implemented a pilot also. Then your land records, number of states have looking at implementing land records. MP has already completed the DPR process. Is looking at an RFP implementing land records. Number of states have digitized all the land records. So now they are planning to take the next leap into implementing solutions because more than 60% of the cases today are all because of disputes